Hello guys, my name is Shunnar. In today's video we're gonna talk about frame rates. I don't know if you, but when I first started filming, I was shooting everything in 60 frames per second because I was thinking I will be able to slow down the 60 frames per second to 24 per second, and I will be able to have cinematic look on my footages whenever I want. And also I will have access to 60 frames per second slow down amazing footage. In my head I was thinking I will be able to access those both frame rates if I shoot in 60 frames per second. But day by day I realized that's not the case. Because whenever you're filming, you would like to double your shutter speed to your frame rates, right? Today I want to explain you why you should use certain frame rates depending on what you're gonna shoot. Before we continue guys, crush the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, and if you have subscribed already, you guys are awesome. There is gonna be cases that you want to shoot 60 or 120 frames per second because you want to have that slowed down buttery footage, right? But today I want to explain you why you should use 24 frames per second in general. If you want that cinematic look, you would like to shoot in most probably 24 frames per second because human eye is gonna detect if there is something weird going on. And if you're shooting in 24 frames per second, you have to double your shutter speed, which is around 50. But if you're filming in 60 frames per second, your shutter speed has to be 120. And let's say that you filmed in 60 frames per second and you used 120 shutter speed. When you slow down that footage on your editing software, for example Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, you're not gonna get real 24 frames per second because you shoot in 60 frames per second and you used 120 shutter speed. So because of that, when you slow down that 60 frames per second footage to 24 frames per second and you use different shutter speed, your footage is not gonna be real 24 frames per second footage. If you're a beginner filmmaker, these numbers can be a little bit confusing, and you can always go back and listen those numbers again if you want to, but basically if you're shooting in 24 frames per second, you have to double that number. So 50 shutter speed for 24, and if you're shooting in 60 frames per second, 120 shutter speed is what you should use. I don't know if your camera is able to shoot 120 frames per second, but if it's able to, then your shutter speed has to be 240. There can be some cases that you want to use different shutter speeds, but in most of the time you're gonna double your frame rate. This is the simplest way that I can explain. There's a lot of videos and information on internet that you can search and learn more about this, but in this video I want to explain why you should use certain frame rates for different shoots. I have fixed this problem completely by just assigning those frame rates to different dials on my camera. I don't know what kind of camera you use, but you can drop a comment down below. I would like to hear what kind of camera do you use. I'm using GH5, so on my C1 I have the 24 frames per second, on C2 I have the 60 frames per second, and on my C3 I have 1080 120 frames per second. I can switch in between different frame rates easily and fast. So this way I don't need to worry about any weird looking footage because I know that I have shot real 20 frames per second by just switching a dial, or I shoot 60 frames per second for any slow motion that I want. And if you're also using GH5, you can find my camera settings in this video, up here somewhere. That's it for today guys. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you find the video helpful, please crush the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching and see you guys in the next one.